Hey guys, we're going to be starting a new series this week called Practice. I think that what we need right now is some really practical things that we can be doing on a regular basis to follow Jesus more. And actually, this is going to extend beyond just spiritual life into our normal everyday life. And the reason that we're talking about this, what I mean by this, right? We're talking about discipline, about habits, about being intentional with our time. And I don't really like the word discipline because I think it has a lot of negative connotations. So the main word I'm going to use here is practice. And what I want you to think about in practice is like sports, right? Now, as you play a sport or participate in a sport, you have to practice, right? Now, there's some gifted people out there that seem like they don't have to practice, but there's a point that'll only bring you to a certain point. At some point, you're going to need to really put in the effort to practice, or you're never going to get any better. And as you look at all the best basketball players, football players, baseball players, runners, athletes, whatever it is, if you talk to them, you're going to find they put tens of thousands of hours of practice to become who they are, to become how good they are at that. And as we look at our lives, most of us want to do something well with our lives, right? Now, maybe some of you don't care about being the best athlete or the smartest person in the world, something like that. But most of us, we aspire to do something significant with our lives, right? We want meaning, we want significance in our lives. And in order to get that, right, we need to do things well. And in order to do things well, we have to practice. But we're in a place right now that's weird because it's harder for us to practice, okay? We were told to stay at home, and a lot of life just dramatically changed overnight. From our normal daily rhythms and schedules, the things that you did, maybe you go to work, maybe you go to school. You have different things that you're doing that turn you in. You have different things that you're doing that help you become who you want to be, right? Well, hopefully, if you're intentional. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. And now, a lot of the structure that we had in our lives has left. And without structure, things can be difficult. I think of somebody who is used to going to school every day. And all of a sudden, that structure is taken out. Are you still learning? Now, maybe you don't have school at all anymore, and maybe you really aren't learning anything. Or maybe now school has shifted to completely online, and now it's up to you to decide when you're going to do school. And the problem is when it's up to us, we often default to either not doing it or procrastinating a lot, right? You think, okay, I need to do school today. But you don't have a plan of when you're going to do it, how much you're going to do, anything like that. What do you end up doing? You end up putting it off, and maybe you get a little bit done, but you don't really feel like doing it. And that can be hard, right? And I ran into this myself. There were two big shifts for me. One was that I went from working in my office at church to working at home. And it's just different working at home. And there were some areas of work that didn't change much. It was still easy to get those things done at home, but there were some things that changed dramatically. That with 3 kids running around, right, there's only so much you can do to keep them quiet. That I had trouble digging deep into certain things because of that. So that was one thing that changed. The other thing that changed for me was I ended up, besides trying to do things online now rather than in person, I started editing the videos for Sunday morning for our main church service. I didn't spend much time on the Sunday morning service with my job, unless I was preaching. And now all of a sudden I was putting many hours into editing and posting that video for Sunday morning. And so some things shifted around. And because of that, I abandoned my normal rhythms and schedules and habits that I had for my normal work week. I usually have a pretty set schedule for my work week. Now there's lots of variables, but I at least have blocks of time set for certain things. And I threw that out the window. I didn't even bring my weekly planner home because I figured there was no point. I'm just going to have to figure out things as I go. And what's the problem with figuring things out as you go? It doesn't work for very long, right? And there was times where I felt so overwhelmed with what I had to get done that I thought I was never going to get it done. And then there was other times where I went, what should I be doing right now? I don't even know what to do. And that's not helpful for me being the pastor that I want to be at this church. And so there's a lot of negative sides to not being disciplined, to not having regular practices in our life. But what I want to talk about for the next 7 weeks is positive practices that we can put into our life. And they're specific to our spirituality, right? But here's the thing. People talk about spiritual disciplines or spiritual practices. But you could argue that every discipline is spiritual. Because spiritual is much more than just one little part of our lives that maybe we do on Sunday mornings. It's much bigger than that. It affects our whole lives. So every discipline that we do, every practice that we put into our lives affects our spiritual life. But the next 6 weeks or so, we're going to be focusing on ones that especially are important for our spirituality. But as we talk about these, we're going to connect them to other things in our life that we can do that help us become more productive, more intentional with our time, so that we're doing things that help us become who we want to be. James Clear says in his book, Atomic Habits, he says, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems or your habits, your practices. We all have goals in life, even whether they're well-defined or not, right? Your goal is to get a good education probably, or to do well at work, those kinds of things. Maybe you have more clearly defined goals, but just having those, just wanting to do those things doesn't work. You have to put practices, daily rhythms, schedules in your life that help you become that. But unfortunately, we don't often think that way with our spirituality. I would say most followers of Jesus want to follow Jesus better, right? They want to become more like him. They want to be with him more. They want to do those things. They want to be like Jesus. And yet having that goal isn't enough alone. We need to put regular things in our life, regular practices in our life that help us to do that. And so that's what I want to talk about the next several weeks. We're going to be talking about things like reading scripture. We're going to be talking about praying. We're going to be talking about silence and solitude, about Sabbath, about simplicity, about fasting. But we're also going to be connecting those to different things in our life that can help you with school, that can help you practice school better. And these are all important. Not because we want to try and earn our salvation or do well in life so that at the end we can say, I did good. But it's because we're kind of wasting our life if we're not intentional, right? If we just wake up every morning with kind of a, I don't know what I'm going to do, I don't know what I want to do, I guess I'll just look at my phone until I figure something out, or I'll just turn on the TV. It's kind of meaningless, right? And I don't know about you, but I want my life to be meaningful. And in order for it to be meaningful, I have to be intentional about how I spend my time. Because the things that I spend my time doing every day affect who I become tomorrow.